Step inside a colonial tavern in the 1700s, and you would immediately notice the smell of wood smoke, roasting meat, and freshly baked bread. Taverns were more than places to drink. They were community hubs where travelers rested, merchants negotiated, and revolutionaries whispered plans. The food served inside these candlelit rooms was hearty, practical, and surprisingly flavorful. Let us begin with some of the most amazing foods commonly served at colonial taverns. One of the staples was roasted game meat. Venison, wild turkey, and rabbit were often slow roasted over open hearths. Hunters supplied taverns with fresh catches, and cooks seasoned the meat simply with salt, pepper, and local herbs. These dishes were filling and rich in flavor. Another favorite was beef stew. Large iron pots simmered for hours over the fire, combining tougher cuts of beef with root vegetables like carrots, turnips, and onions. The long cooking process tenderized the meat and created thick, comforting broths. Indian pudding was a uniquely American creation made from cornmeal, molasses, and milk. Baked slowly until firm, it reflected Native American influence combined with English cooking traditions. It was often served warm with cream. Pot pies were also extremely popular. These savory pies enclosed chicken, pigeon, or beef inside flaky pastry crusts. The crust preserved moisture and made the meal portable for travelers. Salt cod was another tavern staple, especially in coastal colonies. Imported and preserved with heavy salting, it could be stored for months. Cooks soaked it in water to remove excess salt before frying or stewing it. Cornbread frequently accompanied meals. Unlike modern sweet cornbread, colonial versions were dense and savory. Corn was abundant and affordable, making it essential to tavern kitchens. Oyster dishes thrived in coastal towns. Oysters were plentiful and inexpensive in the 1700s. They were served raw, stewed, or baked into oyster pies. Pottage, a thick vegetable-based soup, appeared daily on tavern menus. It was made with whatever vegetables were in season, often enriched with scraps of meat or barley. Johnnycakes, flat cornmeal cakes fried on a griddle, were served alongside salted meats and stews. They were simple but satisfying. Pickled vegetables added brightness to heavy meals. Cabbage, cucumbers, and beans were preserved in vinegar brine to last through winter months. Hasty pudding, made from boiled cornmeal or wheat flour, was a common breakfast dish. It was inexpensive and filling. Boiled ham with mustard sauce was frequently offered, especially during special gatherings. Bread and cheese platters provided quick nourishment for travelers who did not wish to order a full meal. Mutton chops were grilled over open flames and served with onion gravy. Apple pandowdy, a rustic dessert made from spiced apples and pastry, satisfied sweet cravings. These foods were not extravagant. They were rooted in necessity, preservation techniques, and seasonal availability. Colonial tavern cooks mastered the art of stretching ingredients while maintaining flavor. Every meal reflected a blend of Native American ingredients, European traditions, and frontier ingenuity. Eating in a 1,700 seconds tavern meant sharing long wooden tables with strangers, listening to political debates, and savoring hearty fare that fueled daily labor and long journeys. The amazing foods served in these establishments shaped early American culinary identity and laid the foundation for many dishes still enjoyed today. Colonial taverns in the 1700s were lively places filled with conversation, politics, and the comforting aroma of rustic cooking. Beyond the basic stews and roasted meats, tavern menus offered a surprising variety of dishes influenced by English, Dutch, French, and indigenous traditions. These meals were designed to be filling, affordable, and practical for both locals and weary travelers. One commonly served dish was boiled beef with cabbage. Large cuts of beef were simmered for hours until tender, then served alongside wedges of cabbage cooked in the same broth. The simplicity of this dish allowed natural flavors to shine. Shepherd's pie also appeared in colonial taverns, though it often used whatever meat was available rather than strictly lamb. Minced meat was layered beneath mashed root vegetables and baked near the hearth. Succotash was another staple, combining corn and beans into a nourishing dish rooted in Native American culinary tradition. Taverns adopted it because it was inexpensive and easy to prepare in large quantities. Pea soup was thick and hearty, often cooked with salted pork. Dried peas were easy to store, making this soup a dependable menu item year-round. Fried smelts and river fish were popular in taverns near waterways. Lightly floured and pan-fried, they were served with coarse bread and ale. Plowman's lunch-style platters included crusty bread, sharp cheese, boiled eggs, and cured meats. These simple plates were quick to assemble for hungry patrons. Mince pies, filled with chopped meat, dried fruits, and spices, reflected British culinary roots. Though today they are sweet, colonial versions were more savory. Stewed pumpkin was frequently served in autumn. Sweetened lightly with molasses and spiced with nutmeg, it bridged the gap between savory and dessert. Pancakes made from buckwheat flour were common breakfast fare. They were dense and earthy, served with butter or syrup. Rabbit pie was especially popular in rural colonies. Wild rabbits were abundant and easy to hunt. Beef tongue, though unusual to modern diners, was boiled and sliced thin for sandwiches or platters. Coleslaw made from shredded cabbage and vinegar added acidity to balance heavy meats. Barley porridge provided a warm and sustaining start to the day. Roasted duck appeared during special occasions. Seasoned with herbs grown in kitchen gardens, molasses cookies offered a sweet finish to tavern meals, their chewy texture beloved by children and adults alike. Colonial tavern cuisine was rooted in resourcefulness. Every ingredient was used carefully, and preservation methods like salting, smoking, and pickling ensured food security. These dishes reveal a society dependent on agriculture, trade routes, and seasonal rhythms. Taverns served as melting pots where culinary traditions blended, creating early American flavors that would evolve for centuries. Beyond daily fare, colonial taverns also served celebratory dishes that marked holidays, political meetings, and militia gatherings. These meals were heartier and sometimes more elaborate, showcasing the skills of experienced cooks. Roast goose was a festive centerpiece, especially during winter celebrations. Slow roasted over open flames, the crisp skin and tender meat drew large crowds. Beef pasties, handheld pastries filled with seasoned meat and vegetables, were convenient for travelers needing portable meals. Indian succotash variations included squash and herbs, enriching the flavor profile. Clam chowder in New England taverns featured cream, potatoes, and salt pork. Fresh shellfish were plentiful and affordable. Pigeon pie was surprisingly common. Domesticated pigeons were raised for meat and baked into savory pies. Boiled potatoes with parsley butter provided a simple but satisfying side. Hog jowl, cured and sliced, was fried crisp and served with greens. Apple cider braised pork reflected the abundance of orchards in colonial America. Fritters made from cornmeal or apples were fried in lard until golden brown. Cheese puddings combined eggs, cheese, and breadcrumbs into rich baked dishes. Tripe stew was another tavern specialty, slow cooked with onions and herbs. Venison pasty showcased wild game in flaky pastry. Gingerbread cakes, heavily spiced, were popular desserts that traveled well. Rice pudding, sweetened and topped with nutmeg, was occasionally offered in port cities where rice was accessible. These celebratory foods illustrate how colonial taverns balanced practicality with indulgence. They provided nourishment but also comfort, reinforcing community bonds during uncertain times. Colonial taverns were not fine dining establishments, but they played a crucial role in shaping America's culinary foundation. The final collection of amazing foods highlights the diversity and ingenuity of 1,700 seconds cooking. Shad roe, harvested from spring fish runs, was pan-fried in butter. Pumpkin soup blended local squash with cream and spices. Venison stew thickened with barley warmed travelers on cold nights. Chicken fricassee simmered poultry in creamy herb sauce. Salted beef hash mixed leftovers with potatoes for economical meals. Pickled beets added color and tang. Rye bread, darker and denser than wheat bread, reflected European traditions. Chestnut stuffing accompanied roasted meats. Cabbage rolls stuffed with minced meat were baked slowly in cast iron pots. Cider donuts were occasionally fried during harvest seasons. Oat cakes provided long-lasting energy. Clotted cream with fresh berries appeared in wealthier taverns. Herb-roasted partridge was considered a delicacy. Molasses-glazed carrots sweetened the table. And finally, flip, a hot drink made with ale, rum, sugar, and a heated poker, paired with many meals and defined the tavern atmosphere. These foods tell the story of resilience, trade, and tradition. Colonial taverns were crossroads of culture and conversation. The amazing dishes served there were born from necessity, but remembered for comfort and flavor. Through smoke-filled rooms and wooden benches, early Americans forged both political revolution and culinary identity, one hearty meal at a time.